Welcome back. I'm Rob Lang and this is my game Clomper. You live inside a mechanical ladybird called a Clomper, which you control by making pipes to power machines with steam. The outside world is a hellscape, which you explore from inside the Clomper, gathering resources and completing quests. That sounds like fun. Go wishlist on Steam. Hello! It's been 5 years since I started devlogging Clomper, and just over that since I started developing the thing. So let's look back of all the stuff that I've built, the stuff I've thrown away, the mistakes I've made, of which there are more than a couple, the things I've learned, and how on earth I've managed to keep going, and a little bit about what's next. It's exciting stuff. But let's begin back in the beginning. July 2019, in the before times. I wanted to make a game that I could play with friends, and the kind of games we liked were those sort of close cooperative games like Deep Rock Galactic or Raft or Grand Theft Auto, but there was a lot of trolling in that. There's lots of trolling. But I wanted some element of construction and exploration. So I jotted down some ideas and I shared them with my friends. I wouldn't call this a game design document though. It wasn't that. It was a page. And I asked my friends, is this going to be fun? Is it worthwhile? And they said, possibly. I listed a whole bunch of features on a Trello board, and then I prioritised them with those that really needed to be done and those I just didn't need. This brings us to top tip number 1. Set up your source control before you go any further. There are cloud source control providers all over the internet. You can choose your favourite one, but please use source control. Commit small, commit often, push up to the cloud. Your hard drive knows when you've got loads of unsaved work. It's watching you. It wants you to lose things. Hard drives, SSDs, NVMEs, they hate humans. They want to get their own back. Don't trust them. With that set up, I created a bunch of temporary game art, which looks so much like the current game art, and then listed the things that were hardest, the things I didn't know. And the first one at the top of that list was multiplayer networking. Tip number 2, put your networking library in as early as you can. They're all very opinionated and they will force you to do things in a certain way. Best to get that going as early as you can. I got pipes connecting next, and originally they were going to be in just 2 dimensions, but my good friend Pete suggested 3 dimensions would be much funnier, so I did that, and I'm very glad I did. I added a map to plan your route through the world, and to keep the amount of UI on the screen down, I added the con that would have dials on it for things like speed. Then I split the Clomper into 2. There's the one that the players run around on the inside of. That doesn't move. And then there's the one that moves around the actual world. It made physics a whole lot easier, thanks to Big Rob for that suggestion. To make it playable at all, I put in some random environment, but that was very temporary. Top tip number 3, get a command console into your game early. There's loads on the asset store that you can find, just buy one and download it. This will allow you to spawn things in, kill things, reset things. It's a lot easier when you're trying to debug a build. In November 2019, I started my first devlog. I realised that if you were going to grow a YouTube channel, the graphics need to look better. Certainly most people would say in game dev, don't do the graphics first, just get the gameplay in. But if you want to build a YouTube channel as well, then you need to put some half decent graphics in. They don't need to be beautiful, they just need to be, well, not this. Then features came at something of a pace. I added a claw for picking up items from the world and a pot to drop them into. Then valve switches, a thermometer for recording how much scrap you picked up, and a lift to move quest items in and out of the Clomper. A periscope for seeing outside, and then I had to remove the pot because it was just too complicated. But I added a grinder for turning scrap that you pick up in the outside world into the money scrap that you spend. Top tip number 4, make rough game state saves that you can load very quickly to help you test. It's much more effort to lay all these pipes than just to load them in. By the end of this flurry of features, I had a whole bunch of bugs I needed to fix. And then I had a batch of migraines, which are like the worst headaches that you could possibly get. You have to lie in a dark room where it's quiet and hope that your head doesn't explode. With the migraines gone, I rebuilt the world from whatever that purling noise object solution was to wave function collapse. Top tip number 5, procedural generation can keep things interesting for you when you're having to play the game hundreds of times. But it's a large amount of work, and sometimes a handcrafted map is just better. In November 2020, with 1 year of YouTubing and deving under my belt, I decided to do something rather silly. I replaced Photon with Mirror. There's a whole devlog on that. However, in short, it was because Photon Pun 2 used a server authoritative model, whereas I needed peer-to-peer. Top tip number 6. Oh, I can't believe I'm doing this one. Okay, don't change your netcode library unless you really have to. It took me 6 months at first to go from Photon Pun 2 to Mirror, and this wasn't going to be the only time I did this. With updated netcode, I decided to do the first playtest with my friends, and so I asked them that question.
Crashes aside, do you think that this could be fun?
The silence was deafening, and I didn't really get an answer on that night. It came some weeks after, and they said, possibly. I needed to breathe more life into the Clomper, so I added sounds and a heat management mechanic that added sprites, the little cuties, and boiler explosions. So 2 years after I started, I had the second playtest. If they'd said it wasn't fun, I would have stopped Clomper in October 2021. And at the end of the test, I asked them, is it fun? And they said yes. So relieved. It was fun. It needed a bunch of stuff adding to it. But yeah, it was fun. Top tip number 7. Test your game early with real people and then test it often. The world needed more to it. I added crevasses to fall into, and ramps so you could go uphill, and roller conveyors to push you along and sometimes into crevasses. Top tip number 8. Build your own Unity editor tools. I have a bunch of buttons that allow me to drive the Clomper and bounce backwards and forwards between the Clomper and its proxy driving around the world. Saved me hours. The world was randomly generated and kind of felt it. So I used biomes to group similar things together, so you have crevasse biomes and hill biomes. It gives a more human touch to the world, and I hope to go further with that in the future. In April 2022, I tried streaming for the first time, and I really like it, but with my family situation, it's very difficult to make the time. I returned to my questing system and made sure that the quest items were reachable using the A-star pathing algorithm. I added acceleration to the objects inside the Clomper so they mimicked the move of the Clomper. Thank you to Lecholab for your help. And then in June 2022, I did something that was possibly stupid. I had a problem with the mirror networking system, so I decided to move to the newly released Unity netcode for game objects. I did the thing that I told everyone that they shouldn't do. In fact, I did it twice. I moved from Photon Pun 2 to Mirror and then Mirror to NGO. And unsurprisingly, in August, my migraines came back. Right in the middle of rebuilding it all. It took me 188 days to move all the features from Mirror to NGO, and those are two very similar libraries. Top tip number 9. Get a Discord server up and running and get everyone over there. YouTube comments are brilliant, but if you want to have a longer form chat or share progress in smaller chunks, then Discord is the place. December 2022 and netcode for game objects was finally working in multiplayer. Wonderful! Mirror had gone, and it was time to put into the game things that are kind of surprising they weren't there already, such as menus. 3 years I've been working on Clomper by this point, and I hadn't put in any menus. There's no start menu. The game would just run straight in. In the bleak months of January 2023, I decided to just do something a bit frivolous and add legs onto the Clomper. At the time, it seemed utterly pointless. I just fancied doing it, and this is my hobby, so I did it. Big shout out goes out to Alekalab and Veluted Beret for showing me their designs for legs. It gave me some inspiration. The original designs for the legs were really creepy. I much prefer the stompy, clompy mechanical ones we've got now. Top tip 10! Make test scenes to help you test specific things. Like this one, for testing the Clomper legs on rough terrain. I changed all the input system from checking keys in update methods to the event-driven Unity input system. I'm glad I did that. That was a good thing to do. Do that. Use the Unity input system. It's really good. You'll change a lot of code. It's really good. Check it out. Along came more menus for things like settings. People really complain if you don't have them in. In May 2023, I created the Steam page, and it felt real all of a sudden, which was great. As soon as you have art that isn't just developer art, make a Steam page. You can always change the art again later, which I'll be doing soon. Get it up early, start collecting those wish lists. Top tip number 11, put a photo mode in your game. This is a floaty camera that you can easily move around and line up great shots. It's brilliant for devlogs, it's perfect for the Steam page. I wish I'd done it really close to the start. Massively top tip. Very easy to do. Put one in. Photo mode camera. Do it. Do it. Do it. To go on the Steam page, I needed a trailer, and for that, I needed some music. Now, I'm not dreadful at music. I'm also not good, so I contacted a friend, Karen Tingley, who composed some wonderful Clomper music, and you're listening to it now, and have been, in all the devlogs. Well, it's also in the trailer, and it'll be in the game too. It's brilliant, I love it, and there will be more. In the summer of 2023, I added an inventory for when I have hundreds of pipes, and some filters. I still only have 5 pipes, but I will have hundreds, lots and lots of pipes, but only 5 at the moment. So it feels a bit weird, filtering with 5 pipes. Just in case you're struggling to choose between one of the 5. I changed the claw and used Jupyter Notebooks, which is a Python data science tool for balancing the game. As 2023 rolled to a close, I created a new shader and spent a wonderful winter modelling and animating to make the floor way more interesting, and added seats and a kettle. But you can't make tea yet, and I know as soon as anyone else plays the game, they're going to raise that as a bug. So don't worry, you will be able to make tea. I improved the lighting, had another batch of migraines, those two things aren't connected. They're just next to each other in my notes. And then got a little bit obsessed with putting iris animations on everything. I love an iris animation. It makes me involuntarily make this noise, like oh. Look at the iris. The summer saw a flurry of activity, reflections to take away the deep shadows, broken machine animations, boiler dependent lighting, so many delicious things, which brings us up to the last devlog, number 70. So what have I done since then? I've added a screen with game rules with sliders, and you can make a very different kind of game by sliding these around. You can have a creative type mode, or you can have a really very hard mode where you have to be very careful with all of your pipe networks. I've added a save load system, created build and deploy to automatically get the game up onto Steam, added the Steam API networking in so you can join your friends or host. Change the periscope control from just keys to adding mouse as well. Put numbers on all the compasses and add a little icon to show you on the main compass where the periscope is pointing. Change the claw movement from this awkward clicking on one side or the other to a much simpler press E to go one way, Q to go the other. And this last little one, which I'm very proud of, is a way of showing your distance to the quest. It starts all the way around here when you're a long way away from the crest, and as you get closer to it, it moves around the circle. Now the reason it's on the port there is because you could have 4 quests. Top tip number 12. Update Unity or your packages at the start of a feature. Don't do it midway through. Get through all of your features, get it nice and stable, play test it, and then sign that off, and then when you start your next feature, do all of the upgrades first. So how have I managed to keep going for 5 years? Well, there are 3 parts to it really. The first one is the why. Why are you doing game dev in the first place? Now I like to think that there are needs that every person has, and game dev will meet some of those needs. You might find that over time your needs change, and that some bits of game dev, such as creativity, meets your need of wanting to be creative. But other parts of game dev, such as bug fixing, which is problem solving, does not. You need to keep asking yourself, is game dev still meeting a need? And if it isn't, you need to change something. Secondly, you need to stay organised. And that's not just at the start. That's all the way through. Use source control. In the cloud, GitHub, GitLab, I've got a video on that. Please use it. You should break up big tasks into smaller ones and keep track of them in something like Trello, or I like to use GitHub projects, but it's the same thing really. Thirdly, form good habits. This is not really discipline. I think of it more as habits, things that you just do because you keep doing them, because they're good for you. Such as committing small and committing often, and pushing to the cloud as often as you can. Habits are good because you spend less time worrying about the boring stuff and more time concentrating on building your game. Now there is a much longer video in this somewhere. I will make it, I promise. I've been promising that for 4 years now, and I promise I will promise to do it now. To wrap up this retrospective, it must be said that one of the main reasons I've kept going over all this time is the community. Your support, your watching, your liking, your subscribing, and above all else, your comments. Either down in the comments section or endless discussions in the Discord. Thank you so much for all of that. I've made so many friends over the past few years, which I truly delight at seeing the progress of their games. So please come and share your work in the Discord, and we can talk about the things that we're doing well and doing not so well, and you can give early feedback. Without community, I would have given up long ago. I believe that game dev is a rare gift where you share your imagination in such a way that other people can wander around inside it and interact with it. It's deeply personal and hugely rewarding, and I'm looking forward to 2025 being the year where more people get to play Clomper. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye bye.